The phone rang just as I was pulling into the cemetery parking lot, my hands still shaking from carrying Mom's casket. I almost didn't answer, but the caller ID showed Hartwell Insurance Investigations, and something about that made my stomach drop. 3 hours earlier, I had filed a claim for Mom's missing wedding ring, a simple gold band with tiny diamonds that she never took off in 47 years of marriage. The last time I saw it was on her finger at the hospital, 2 days before she passed. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Ms. Rodriguez? The voice was crisp, professional. This is Patricia Chen from Hartwell Insurance. I'm calling about your claim regarding your mother's wedding ring. I sat in my car watching the funeral home staff prepare for the service, my black dress already wilting in the Phoenix heat. Yes, I filed that this morning. I know it seems fast, but I needed to report it while everything was fresh in my mind. Actually, Ms. Rodriguez, that's why I'm calling. We've located your mother's ring. My heart jumped. You found it? Where? It was pawned yesterday afternoon at Desert Gold Pawn on Camelback Road. The transaction was flagged in our system because the ring matches the description you provided, and frankly, the timing raised red flags. Yesterday afternoon, while I was at the funeral home making final arrangements, while Mom was lying in the morgue waiting for today's service. Who pawned it? There was a pause. The name on the pawn slip is Marcus Chen. No relation to me, I should clarify. Does that name mean anything to you? Marcus. My brother-in-law. My sister Elena's husband of 12 years. The man who had been so helpful these past weeks, offering to handle Mom's affairs while Elena and I focused on her care. The man who had insisted on being the one to collect Mom's personal effects from the hospital. Ms. Rodriguez? Are you there? Yes, I'm here. My voice sounded hollow. Marcus is my brother-in-law. He was supposed to be helping with Mom's estate. I see. Well, there's more. The pawn shop owner, Mr. Rashid, mentioned that the man seemed nervous. He kept looking over his shoulder and asking about the shop's surveillance cameras. Mr. Rashid thought it was odd because most people pawning jewelry don't act like they're being watched. I closed my eyes, trying to make sense of this. Marcus had volunteered for everything, cleaning out Mom's apartment, gathering her important documents, even picking up her medications to return to the pharmacy. Elena had been so grateful, saying it proved what a good man she'd married. There's something else, Patricia continued. The ring wasn't the only item. Mr. Rashid said the same man pawned several pieces yesterday. A pearl necklace, some silver earrings, and what he described as an antique brooch with blue stones. The pearls, Mom's graduation gift from her parents in 1972. The silver earrings she wore to every family gathering. The sapphire brooch that had been her mother's. All pieces I had specifically asked Marcus to set aside for Elena and me to go through together after the funeral. I need to see the pawn shop records, I said. Already working on that. I'll email you everything within the hour. But Ms. Rodriguez, there's one more thing. The man told Mr. Rashid that he might be back with more items today. Said he had some watches and chains to go through. Dad's watch collection. The gold chains he'd given Mom for anniversaries. Marcus had access to everything. I hung up and sat in the parking lot, watching my family gather for Mom's service. Elena stood near the entrance in her black suit, dabbing her eyes with tissues. Marcus beside her in a dark gray suit I'd never seen before, his arm around her shoulders in what anyone would see as supportive comfort. But now I noticed things I'd missed before, the way he kept checking his phone, the expensive-looking watch on his wrist that definitely hadn't been there last week. My cousin Sophia waved me over, but I held up a finger, needing another moment to process this. Marcus had been the perfect son-in-law, always volunteering to help, always stepping up when something needed to be done. When Dad died 8 years ago, Marcus had handled all the insurance paperwork. When Mom started declining, he'd been the one to research care facilities and connect us with social services. I thought about the past month. How Marcus had suggested we avoid involving lawyers in the estate process to save money. How he'd offered to inventory everything himself to make it easier on Elena and me. How he'd insisted we focus on Mom's comfort in her final days while he handled the practical matters. My phone buzzed with an email from Patricia Chen. I opened the attachments, and there it was. A photocopy of the pawn slip with Marcus's signature, clear as day. The timestamp showed 3:47 p.m. yesterday. I remembered exactly where Marcus was supposed to be at that time, because Elena had called me, worried that he was running late to pick her up from work. He'd told her he was stuck in traffic after finishing up at Mom's apartment. There was a second attachment. A list of all the items pawned yesterday by Marcus Chen. Mom's wedding ring was just the beginning. Her diamond tennis bracelet, the one she'd bought herself for her 60th birthday, the gold locket with Dad's picture inside, even her everyday pieces, the costume jewelry she wore to run errands. Everything was accounted for, except the valuable items I knew were still missing. I scrolled through my phone to the photos I'd taken of Mom's jewelry box 2 weeks ago, when we'd first started talking about securing her valuables. Every piece Patricia had listed was visible in those photos, sitting in the velvet-lined compartments where Mom had kept them organized by color and occasion. The funeral director appeared at my car window, gently tapping. "Ms. Rodriguez, we're ready to begin." I nodded and gathered my purse, but my hands were trembling. How was I supposed to sit through Mom's funeral service knowing that her own son-in-law had been systematically stealing from her while she was dying? How was I supposed to look at Elena, who had no idea she was married to a thief? Walking toward the chapel, I caught Marcus checking his phone again. When he looked up and saw me approaching, his expression shifted slightly. Was that guilt I saw, or was I reading too much into everything now? "Carmen," he said, pulling me into what felt like a perfectly rehearsed hug. "How are you holding up?" "It's been difficult," I managed. "Thank you for handling so much of the paperwork. I know it's been a lot." "Of course. Family takes care of family." He squeezed my shoulder. "Your mom would want us to focus on celebrating her life today, not worry about all the details." Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. Like he was trying to steer my attention away from those very details he'd been handling. Elena joined us, her eyes red from crying. "I still can't believe she's gone. At least we don't have to worry about her valuables anymore. Marcus got everything secured yesterday." "Secured how?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. Marcus answered quickly. "Safe deposit box at the bank. Everything's locked away until we're ready to go through it properly." The lie came so easily. I wondered how many others he'd told over the past month. How many times had Elena thanked him for his helpfulness while he was actually robbing our family blind? We took our seats in the chapel, Elena between Marcus and me. As the service began, I found myself studying my brother-in-law instead of listening to the pastor's words about Mom's life and legacy. The new watch caught the light from the stained glass windows. His shoes looked expensive too, polished leather that probably cost more than Elena made in a week at the dental office. When had Marcus become so well-dressed? When Elena and I were scraping together money for Mom's medical bills? When we were both working extra shifts to afford her care? Marcus had somehow managed to upgrade his entire wardrobe. The pastor invited family members to share memories, and Elena stood to speak about Mom's generosity and strength. As she talked about Mom's beautiful jewelry and how she'd always promised it would stay in the family, I watched Marcus shift uncomfortably in his seat. When Elena finished and sat back down, she whispered to Marcus, "I can't wait to show Carmen Mom's things when we're ready. She would want us both to have pieces to remember her by." Marcus nodded solemnly. "Of course, when the time is right." But there would be nothing left to share. By now, Mom's wedding ring was sitting in a pawnshop display case, marked for resale to strangers. Her pearls, her brooch, her locket with Dad's picture inside, all of it reduced to cash in Marcus's pocket. My phone vibrated with a text from Patricia Chen. "Can you meet me after the service? I have more information you need to see." I typed back, "Yes, where?" "Desert Gold Pawn. The owner wants to talk to you directly." The cemetery reception felt like walking through fog. I moved between conversations about Mom's kindness and generosity, while my mind raced with what I'd learned. Aunt Rosa grabbed my hands and talked about how Mom had always been the glue holding our family together. Uncle Jimmy shared a story about Mom lending him money during his divorce, never asking for it back. Everyone spoke about her giving heart, her open home, her willingness to help anyone in need. Meanwhile, Marcus worked the room like a professional mourner. He hugged distant relatives, accepted condolences with perfect solemnity, and even helped elderly family members to their cars. To everyone else, he was the devoted son-in-law stepping up during a difficult time. Only I could see the performance for what it was. Elena stood beside the memory board we'd put together, pointing out photos to relatives who hadn't seen Mom in years. In one picture, Mom wore her diamond tennis bracelet at Elena's wedding. In another, she had on the pearl necklace at my college graduation. Every piece of jewelry visible in those photos was now sitting in a pawn shop, reduced to serial numbers and cash amounts. I excused myself and walked to my car, hands shaking as I started the engine. The drive to Desert Gold Pawn took 20 minutes through Phoenix traffic, giving me time to rehearse what I would say. But when I pulled into the strip mall parking lot and saw the neon sign flickering in the afternoon heat, my prepared words evaporated. Patricia Chen was waiting by the entrance, a woman in her 40s with silver-streaked hair and the kind of direct gaze that probably served her well in investigations. She introduced herself and led me inside, where the owner, Mr. Rashid, was waiting behind bulletproof glass. The shop smelled like old leather and metal polish. Display cases lined the walls, filled with guitars, power tools, and jewelry that represented other people's desperate moments. Mr. Rashid was a thin man with careful eyes, who spoke with a slight accent I couldn't place. "The man who brought in your mother's items," he began, sliding a folder through the security window. Very nervous. "Kept asking about our policies, how long until items go to sale, whether we report transactions to police." Patricia opened the folder and spread out photocopies. "He made multiple trips. First yesterday afternoon with the jewelry, then again this morning, early with more items. This morning, while I was getting dressed for Mom's funeral, Marcus had been at a pawn shop selling more of her belongings." "What did he bring this morning?" I asked. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Mr. Rashid consulted his records. 2 men's watches, vintage, 1 Omega, 1 Rolex. Also silver picture frames, small electronics, and a coin collection. Dad's watches. The frames that held our family photos on Mom's dresser. The coin collection Dad had started in the Army and added to for 30 years. Marcus had promised Elena and me that he was keeping everything safe in storage until we were ready to deal with it. "Did he say anything about coming back?" Patricia asked. "Yes. He asked about bringing larger items. Mentioned furniture, artwork, possibly some appliances." I felt sick. Mom's antique dining set, the one that had belonged to her grandmother, the paintings she'd collected over the years. Even her kitchen appliances, the ones she'd taken such pride in when she finally saved enough to remodel 10 years ago. Patricia slid another document across the counter. "This is the really interesting part. Mr. Rashid, tell her about the woman." "A woman came in about an hour ago asking about the jewelry. Said her husband had pawned some items and she wanted to see them. When I described the pieces, she got very upset. Started crying, said there had been a mistake." "Did she give a name?" "Elena Chen. She said the jewelry belonged to her mother, and her husband had no right to pawn it. Elena had been here. She knew." "Where is she now?" I asked. Mr. Rashid shrugged. "She left when I told her the items couldn't be returned without proper documentation and the pawn fees being paid. She seemed very confused about the whole situation. My phone rang. Elena's number. Carmen?" Her voice was shaky, tearful. "Where are you? I need to talk to you. I'm running an errand. What's wrong?" "It's Marcus. I think he's done something terrible. Can you meet me at Mom's apartment? I'm here now and I need you to see this." I looked at Patricia, who nodded. "We'll meet you there," I said. The drive to Mom's apartment complex felt surreal. I'd been there just last week to pick up her mail, and everything had seemed normal. Now I was racing there to confront evidence of my brother-in-law's betrayal, while my sister fell apart. Elena's car was in the parking lot, but I didn't see Marcus's truck anywhere. Patricia followed me upstairs to apartment 4B, where Elena stood in the doorway looking like she'd aged 10 years since the funeral. "Carmen, thank God." She pulled me into a desperate hug. "I don't understand what's happening." Inside, Mom's apartment looked like it had been ransacked. Drawers hung open, Closets had been emptied, and there were obvious gaps where furniture used to sit. The entertainment center was bare. The coffee table that had anchored the living room for 15 years was gone. "Elena, this is Patricia Chen from the insurance company. She's investigating Mom's missing jewelry." Elena's face crumpled. "You found out about the jewelry. I was hoping I could fix this before you knew." "How long have you known?" "Since this morning. I found pawn slips in Marcus's jacket pocket when I was getting it ready for the cleaners." She pulled out crumpled papers. "At first I thought there had to be some mistake, but then I drove to the pawn shop and saw Mom's wedding ring in their display case." Patricia took the slips and examined them. "These show transactions going back 3 weeks. Elena, your husband has been systematically selling your mother's belongings since before she died. But he told me he was organizing everything. He said he was protecting Mom's valuables from potential break-ins." Elena sank onto the couch, the only piece of furniture left in the living room. "He said he'd rented a storage unit and was keeping everything safe until after the funeral." I sat beside her. "There is no storage unit, Elena. He's been selling everything and pocketing the money." "But why? We're not in financial trouble. His business has been doing well." Patricia consulted her notes. "Actually, Mrs. Chen, we ran a credit check as part of our investigation. Your husband has significant debts. Credit cards, a business loan that's in default, and what appears to be gambling debts based on some unusual transaction patterns." Elena stared at her. "Gambling debts? Marcus doesn't gamble. He thinks casinos are a waste of money. The transactions suggest otherwise. Large cash advances, payments to betting websites, transfers to accounts associated with sports booking operations." My sister looked around the empty apartment with growing horror. "How much could he have gotten for all this?" "Based on what we've documented so far, probably $15,000 to $20,000. But Mrs. Chen, this appears to be just the beginning. The pawn shop owner said your husband asked about consigning larger items through their estate sale division." Elena pulled out her phone. "I'm calling him. He needs to explain this." But when she dialed, the call went straight to voicemail. She tried again with the same result. "Elena," I said gently, "where did Marcus say he was going after the funeral?" "Back to work. He said he had to catch up on some projects since he'd taken time off to help with Mom's affairs." Her voice broke on the last words. Patricia was taking notes. "What kind of work does he do?" "He runs a small construction company, mostly residential remodeling." Elena wiped her eyes. "He's been talking about expanding, taking on bigger projects. Said he was waiting for the right opportunity to invest in better equipment." I thought about Marcus's new clothes, his expensive watch, the way he'd been so eager to handle Mom's estate without lawyers or formal procedures. Everything made horrible sense now. "We need to file a police report," Patricia said. "This isn't just insurance fraud anymore. This is theft from an estate, possibly elder abuse if he was taking items while your mother was still alive." Elena flinched. "Elder abuse? But Mom loved Marcus. She trusted him completely." "That's what makes this so serious." "He exploited that trust." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop digging, or Elena pays the price." I showed it to Patricia, who immediately took a photo of the screen. "This changes things. We need police involvement right now." But Elena was already calling Marcus again, her face desperate. This time, he answered. "Marcus, where are you?" she said immediately. "I'm at Mom's apartment and everything's gone. I found the pawn slips in your jacket." I could hear his voice through the phone, fast and defensive, but couldn't make out the words. "No, that's not true," Elena said, her voice rising. "I saw Mom's wedding ring at the pawn shop. I talked to the owner." More talking from Marcus, his tone becoming more aggressive. "Gambling debts? What gambling debts? You told me you don't gamble." Elena's face went white as she listened. Finally, she said, "Don't you dare blame this on Carmen. She didn't make you steal from a dying woman." The line went dead. Elena stared at her phone, then looked at Patricia and me with absolute devastation. He said it's Carmen's fault for being too sentimental about junk. Said Mom was gonna die anyway, and the jewelry was just sitting there going to waste. He said I'd understand when the bills started coming, and we needed the money. Patricia was already on her phone with what sounded like police dispatch. I heard her giving Mom's address and describing the situation as theft and possible threats. Elena, I said, taking her hand, this isn't your fault. None of this is your fault. But I should have known. How could I not know my own husband was capable of this? Before I could answer, we heard heavy footsteps on the stairs outside. Patricia gestured for us to stay quiet and moved toward the window to look down at the parking lot. White pickup truck just pulled up, she whispered. Man getting out, looks agitated. Marcus was coming back. The apartment door slammed open and Marcus stormed in, his face red with anger and sweat beading on his forehead. He stopped short when he saw Patricia, clearly not expecting a stranger to be present. For a moment, the room was completely silent except for the sound of his heavy breathing. Elena, we need to talk, he said, ignoring Patricia and me completely. Alone. No, Elena said, her voice stronger than I'd heard it all day. Whatever you have to say, you can say it in front of Carmen and Mrs. Chen. Marcus's eyes narrowed as he looked at Patricia. Who exactly are you? Patricia Chen, Insurance Investigator. I've been tracking the theft of Mrs. Rodriguez's jewelry, which led me to Desert Gold Pawn and subsequently to you. This is ridiculous. I haven't stolen anything. I had access to help settle the estate, and I made some decisions to liquidate assets. That's not theft. Liquidate assets, I repeated, standing up. Is that what you call pawning Mom's wedding ring while her body was still warm? Marcus whirled toward me. Don't be so dramatic, Carmen. Your mother was dead. Dead people don't need jewelry. Elena gasped. Marcus, how can you say that? Because it's true. You two were so busy crying and grieving that you couldn't see the practical reality. There were medical bills to pay, funeral costs, apartment rent still due. Someone had to make the hard decisions. Patricia consulted her notes. Mr. Chen, our investigation shows you pawned items worth approximately $18,000. Can you account for how that money was used for estate expenses? Marcus's jaw clenched. I don't have to explain my financial decisions to some insurance investigator. Actually, you do, especially since Mrs. Rodriguez filed a police report this afternoon. Police report? Elena looked at me with confusion. The threatening text message, Patricia explained. Combined with the theft charges, this became a criminal matter. Marcus took a step toward Patricia, his hands balling into fists. You had no right to involve the police. This is a family matter. Elder abuse and theft are not family matters, Patricia said calmly, not backing down, despite Marcus being twice her size. They're felonies. Elder abuse? Marcus laughed bitterly. Carmen's mother was practically catatonic at the end. She didn't even know what day it was, let alone what jewelry she had. The casual cruelty in his voice made me want to scream. Mom was lucid until her last week. She knew exactly what she owned and what it meant to her. Sentimental garbage. Do you know what I could have done with $18,000? The business opportunities I've had to pass up because you two insisted on keeping every useless trinket? Elena stood up slowly. Business opportunities? Or gambling debts? Marcus's face went pale. Who told you about that? It doesn't matter who told me. What matters is that you've been lying to me for months, maybe years. While I thought we were building a life together, you were destroying it. I was trying to fix things. The construction business is competitive. Sometimes you have to take risks to stay ahead. Taking risks with your own money is one thing, I said. Taking risks with my dying mother's belongings is something else entirely. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Marcus heard them too, and his demeanor shifted from aggressive to panicked. Elena, we can work this out. I'll pay back every penny. I'll get the jewelry back from the pawn shop. With what money? Elena's voice was ice cold. According to Mrs. Chen, you've got gambling debts and your business is failing. The business isn't failing, I just hit a rough patch. Sports betting looked like easy money, and at first it was. But then I had some bad luck, and I needed to cover my losses before you found out. Patricia stepped closer to the window. Police are here. Marcus looked around the apartment desperately, as if searching for an escape route. Elena, please. Don't let them arrest me. Think about what this will do to your career, your reputation. Think about what you did to Carmen's mother, to our family. Elena's voice broke. How could you sit at Mom's bedside, holding her hand, knowing you were planning to steal from her the moment she died? It wasn't like that. I never planned any of this. But when she died and I saw all that valuable stuff just sitting there, I realized it could solve all our problems. Heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. Patricia opened the door to reveal 2 Phoenix police officers, a woman and a man, both looking serious and professional. Mrs. Chen? I'm Officer Martinez, this is Officer Johnson. We're responding to a report of theft and threats. Patricia handed over the folder of documentation she'd compiled. This is Marcus Chen, the suspect. These are copies of all the pawn transactions, plus evidence of threats made via text message. Officer Martinez read through the papers while Officer Johnson positioned himself near Marcus, who had sunk onto the couch looking defeated. Mr. Chen, we need you to come with us for questioning regarding theft charges filed by Carmen Rodriguez. This is insane, Marcus muttered, but he didn't resist when Officer Johnson asked him to stand and place his hands behind his back. Elena watched her husband being handcuffed with an expression I'd never seen before. Not sadness or anger, but something closer to relief. Elena, Marcus said as they led him toward the door, don't let Carmen poison you against me. She's always been jealous of what we have. What we had, Elena corrected quietly, and Carmen didn't poison me against you. You did that yourself. After the police left with Marcus, the apartment felt eerily quiet. Patricia gathered her files and prepared to leave, explaining that she'd be in touch about the insurance claim and the process of recovering the pawned items. The good news is that nothing has been sold yet, she said. You should be able to get everything back once the legal proceedings are sorted out. Elena and I sat in Mom's empty living room as the sun set through the blinds. The silence stretched between us, heavy with everything that had happened. I'm sorry, Elena finally said. I brought him into our family. I trusted him with Mom's things. Elena, you couldn't have known. He fooled all of us. But I should have seen the signs, the new clothes, the expensive watch, the way he always volunteered to handle things alone. I thought about the past few hours, how quickly everything had unraveled once the truth started coming out. Mom always said people show you who they really are if you pay attention long enough. She never really liked Marcus, did she? She was polite to him, but she told me once that she thought he was too eager to please, like he was always performing instead of just being himself. Elena laughed sadly. She was right. I wonder what else she was right about that I didn't want to see. 2 weeks later, I met Elena at Desert Gold Pawn to retrieve Mom's jewelry. Mr. Rashid had everything laid out on a velvet cloth, each piece tagged and documented. Mom's wedding ring looked so small and simple next to the elaborate pieces Marcus had also pawned, but it held more weight than all the others combined. Your mother's ring, Mr. Rashid said, handing it to me carefully. 47 years of marriage, you said? 47 years. She never took it off, not even for surgery. Elena picked up the pearl necklace, holding it up to the light. Do you remember when she wore this to my high school graduation? She said it was important to look elegant for important occasions. She wore the sapphire brooch to your wedding. Said something old, something blue. We stood there surrounded by recovered treasures, each piece carrying memories that Marcus had never understood. To him, they were just objects with cash value. To us, they were connections to the woman who had loved us unconditionally. Marcus was sentenced to 2 years probation and ordered to pay full restitution. His construction business folded during the legal proceedings, and Elena filed for divorce before his sentencing hearing. She kept her maiden name when she moved back to her apartment across town. The gambling debts turned out to be even worse than Patricia had initially discovered. Marcus owed money to people who didn't accept payment plans, which explained the desperation that had driven him to theft. Elena found out later that he'd been planning to pawn Mom's furniture and artwork to cover those debts. which would have happened if we hadn't caught him when we did. 6 months after the funeral, Elena and I divided Mom's jewelry properly. We sat at my kitchen table with everything spread out, making careful decisions about who should have what. Elena chose the pearl necklace and the silver earrings. I kept the wedding ring and the sapphire brooch. "Do you think Mom would be proud of how we handled this?" Elena asked, fastening the pearls around her neck. "I think she'd be proud that we stood up for her, even after she was gone, and I think she'd be proud that we protected each other." Elena smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her since the funeral. She always said family was the only thing that really mattered in the end. I slipped Mom's wedding ring onto my right hand, where it caught the afternoon light streaming through my kitchen window. It was simple and unassuming, just like the love it represented. Marcus had seen it as $40 at a pawn shop. But its real value was immeasurable, a symbol of commitment that had survived decades and would continue long after we were gone. Sometimes, the most precious things are the ones that can't be pawned, sold, or stolen. Love, loyalty, and the bonds between mothers and daughters endure, beyond death, beyond betrayal, beyond men who see price tags where they should see priceless memories. Mom had taught us that lesson in life, and she'd reinforced it even in death, bringing justice through an insurance investigator's phone call and a pawn shop owner's careful records. She would have loved that part especially. 1 year later, I wore Mom's wedding ring to Elena's new apartment housewarming party. She'd rebuilt her life from scratch, taking a promotion at the dental office and buying a small place in Scottsdale with a garden where she could grow the roses Mom had always loved. The apartment was filled with laughter and the smell of Elena's homemade enchiladas, Mom's recipe that she'd finally learned to make properly. Our cousins Sophia and Miguel were there, along with Aunt Rosa and several of Elena's co-workers who had become close friends during her divorce proceedings. "Carmen, come see this," Elena called from her bedroom. She'd created a beautiful display case for Mom's jewelry with small cards explaining the history of each piece. The pearl necklace sat next to a photo of Mom wearing it to Elena's graduation. The silver earrings were positioned beside a picture from a family Christmas dinner. "I wanted to honor her memory properly this time," Elena said. "Instead of keeping these hidden away, I wear them on special occasions and remember the stories behind them." Quote, Patricia Chen had stayed in touch, calling occasionally to check on how we were processing everything. She told us that Marcus's case had become a teaching example in her company, about how financial desperation can drive people to betray even their closest family members. The investigation had revealed that he'd been planning the thefts for months, researching pawnshop policies and estate laws while pretending to help with Mom's care. Elena never spoke to Marcus again after his sentencing. He'd written letters from jail trying to explain his actions, but she returned them unopened. "Some betrayals are too deep to forgive," she told me. Mom trusted him, and he violated that trust in the worst possible way. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Elena and I sat on her new patio watching the desert sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. She wore the pearl necklace, and I had on the sapphire brooch, both of us carrying pieces of Mom with us into our futures. "Do you think we'll ever completely get over what he did?" Elena asked. "I think we'll carry it differently as time goes on. The anger fades, but the lesson stays. Mom always said the worst thing about betrayal isn't the act itself, but how it changes your ability to trust." Elena nodded, touching the pearls at her throat. "But maybe that's not always bad. Maybe being more careful about who we trust is part of growing stronger." We sat in comfortable silence as the stars appeared overhead, two sisters bound by love, loss, and the hard-won wisdom that comes from surviving betrayal. Mom's jewelry sparkled in the porch light, no longer just beautiful objects, but symbols of resilience, family bonds that couldn't be pawned or broken by someone else's greed. The investigation had closed, Marcus had served his sentence, and life had moved forward. But the real victory wasn't in getting the jewelry back or seeing justice served. It was in discovering that our family's true treasures, the love and loyalty between sisters, were worth more than any thief could ever steal. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.